voices into the microphone directly, but my eyes are going to be streaming water, and my nose is very clogged up, so hopefully I'll still be able to do this. So we're going to be doing the water signs today. Oh, thank you, Eve. I really appreciate that. I'm sure I will. It did rain today, so maybe the plants will finish blooming, and then everything will settle down. Today I'm using my Gnostic Tarot deck. So that's an Egyptian style deck, and this deck also does not have suits. Hi Kayla's lovely, thank you for coming. It's called the Eternal Tarot. This is very similar to my Egyptian Kier deck. But the Egyptian Kier has like more gold embossing and stuff. Or like has gold printed on it, and it's worth like, I think, quite a bit of money now. But it was my first deck and I still have it, but this one is pretty much the same thing. Yeah, that's one of the Ipsy pouches, and I just use it to keep these cards in. They came in a box, and the box got pretty chewed up like right away, so I put them into a pouch. And then I wanted to bring back the bibliomancy. So for the bibliomancy today, I will be using The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu. And then for the crystal scrying, over on the member side of the channel, I'm going to be using this big chunk of obsidian, which I haven't used in quite some time. So we'll see what it has to say. And I do apologize. Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoy it. So now for the water signs. I like to use the Florida water. To cleanse the space. come over here and shuffle some papers and get my notebook out for the timestamps. And we're going to start with the sign of Cancer. So today we're going to be doing Cancer first, and then Scorpio, and then the sign of Pisces. So Cancer, if you would like, just allow any thoughts or visions or anything that you'd like to cover in the reading, allow those things to float up to the forefront of your thoughts. And if there's anything stressful about that, or if there's any discomfort associated with that, just allow yourself to breathe through that energy. Take a deep breath in and envision your entire body filling head to toe with the divine white light of Source throughout your whole body. And then I do beg your pardon, I'm so sorry. And then as you exhale, just sigh out any of that tension or stress. Or allergies, as the case may be. Okay. Oh, interesting. All right. Interesting. Cancer. Oh, okay. Cool. So let me write down your timestamp here. I don't know if any of you are into nose blowing noises. And I do apologize. I really can't apologize enough for my allergies. But let's get started. So, Cancer, for you here in the past, we have in this deck, it's called Retribution. And this is the Wheel of Fortune card. As you can see, we have Horus or Ra here. We have, this is Taweret, who is a hippopotamus goddess. And she was very ferocious, but she was also a protector of pregnant women and associated with pregnancy and parturition. So we have the sun rising. We have her kind of in this setting position. And there's a lot of the alchemy of childbirth that is wrapped up in the cycles of the sun, which of course the Egyptians were pretty obsessed with. So this card showing up in the past, this is in this deck, I believe this is Pluto, and Scorpio energy. And so this is transformation. Now it's called retribution in this deck, which really doesn't have that much to do with, people getting a comeuppance or something like that. This is more to do with a cycle coming full circle, coming to a point where everything kind of opens up at the end and everyone gets what they came for. The work that they put in, they get back out again at the end of that cycle. So to me, that's what we're looking at here with this Wheel of Fortune card in this particular deck. We do have this white sphinx up here too. So we don't have the Chariot card here, Cancer. Hi, Glove Fed. Thank you for coming. It's good to see you. But Cancer's card in the Major Arcana is, of course, the Chariot, which is pulled by two sphinxes, and one of them being white and the other being black, just simply to show duality of nature, right? Oh, yes, I'll be doing those tomorrow, Juan. Thank you for coming. So, because this card is showing up reversed in the past, I think that this might have been a choice between two paths that you made in the past, Cancer, and that it was in order to change your fortune for the better and in order to get the energies out of situations that you were putting into them. So now let's look at the current situation. As I mentioned, this deck does not have a suited minor arcana. So learning with this deck was a little bit complex, but now I've quite familiarized myself with it. We have here the card of offering. You see, it's very interesting because typically in Egyptian art, the hierarchy is shown by the size of the different figures, right? So they're implying that this person who's giving offering down here is more important than this person up here who would be receiving that tribute. And that's a very interesting concept because typically all of the pharaohs and rulers and gods were shown as the pharaohs and the gods would have been the same size. And then everybody else would have been smaller than them to show that hierarchy. This is a card with the energy of the moon here. So the important part of this card is the offer being made, right? We also see here this god who actually has their head turned around backwards, if you can see that. Now, this would have been somebody who looks behind. And I could probably go through the 42 judges, and this might be one of the 42 judges, but it would be somebody who has great memory, great vision of the past, but not necessarily of the future. So what might be going on here is, because this card is in the reverse, that you are offering things right now to others that you may or may not have yourself to give. And that is going to be based on things from the past and looking so much to the past that you might be ignoring things in the future. Could also be that rather than you being the one doing the offering, that the offers at this time are coming into you, and that you then are this person here receiving those offers rather than the person down here who is the subject of the card making the offers. And that, of course, would be that Wheel of Fortune in the past coming into fruition of some kind. So the crossing card for the significator, which is this offering in the reverse, we have the consummation card. And again, the consummation card is going to be associated with this situation coming full circle. Consummation being that signing of the documentation. Consummation, like consummating a marriage. We all know what that means. We do have Jupiterian energy coming in with this. So the moon, lunar cycles, there's kind of an ebb and flow to it. So you could also think of this offering card a little bit like the Six of Pentacles, right? Whereas this consummation card with the Jupiterian energies here, we see almost like what looks to be a lunar eclipse here beneath the person's feet, or perhaps a solar eclipse. It's difficult to say. But that this is bringing a finality to this arrangement, such that whether this is goods coming into you, or you perhaps not looking to the future before you honor past commitments, that something is going to kind of be set in stone about that. There's going to be like kind of a more concrete arrangement made. So I would encourage you to be very careful at this time in entering into agreements with others. And I am very, very sorry. I'm just going to be kind of drippy during this reading, and it's because of my allergies. So now we can look down at the Imam Seelai, which of course is if you have a 12 houses wheel laid out on the Celtic cross, down at the bottom, the third and fourth houses, that cusp is the Imam Seelai, and it's going to be all the foundations for what we end up seeing up here in the midheaven. And down here, we actually have a card of movement, pilgrimage. Now, this card also has lunar energy, much like this offering card. So the pilgrimage card could be a little bit more like a Six of Swords, right? That there's movement. There's this person here who is dressed like a priest, and this bark overhead showing that kind of mobility. I'm so sorry. So you might be planning a trip, you might be planning a move or a relocation. And this would be to your benefit, most likely. It could be to make more money. It could be for more opportunity. It could be that the place where you're living right now is just not very conducive to what it is you really want to do in your life. And so that's going to be an aspect of it too. From your position, looking out, we have this major arcana card, which is sometimes called the Lovers. but in this particular case is called indecision. So we see that one of these choices is heavily favored over the other. But this may or may not be the right choice. This is Taurus and Venus energy, Venus in Taurus. So Venus is at home in Taurus, and this can be about finances. Venus in Libra is much more about the love aspects of relationships. And then Venus in Taurus is more like the finance aspects of Venus coming out. So this could be a choice between two different ways of life. It could be a choice between two people, and one of them is very wealthy and the other is not. It could be a choice between two jobs. And as I mentioned, one of them might be heavily favored, but that's not necessarily the case. So you may see that you have a choice here. From an outside person's perspective, we have resentment reversed. And this is going to be that pesky Saturnian energy. So this could be a little bit like a 5 of Wands, more like a 7 of Wands, or a 5 of Swords. Excuse me. And we see here, this hieroglyph is often associated with words having to do with force. And we have one person here who's really not super well equipped in this battle. He has a staff, and he has his sword, or his shield here, rather. Sorry. He's still got his dagger here sheathed on his chest. It's not going to do him much good there. He needs to have that unfurled so that he can fight in hand-to-hand combat with this other person who does have their dagger unsheathed. The staff, of course, has a longer reach, but if this person is able to block that and get in close, then it's a little bit unwieldy hand to hand, right? So resentment is not just these situations where people have kind of gotten the upper hand against us, but the fact that this person might not just resent this person. They might really resent themselves for not being better prepared in this particular situation. And so there's all kinds of aspects that can go into this. So from the outside looking in, which is this placement here, this card that we're looking at, people might see that you're actually letting go of a lot of those feelings. And that's why the card is showing up in the reverse. Not because you are locked into that resentment, but because you are escaping it. You are letting things go. You are learning to move on. Saturn is a very solid energy, a very concrete energy, very slow moving. So things, if they have been kind of bound up, might be loosening and coming back out again. So the next card that we have here is for the future. The future, the future, the future. And we do have another card in the reverse, but it is in the future. So that could be a potential energy, or it could be something that will end up not happening. This is a Neptunian card. You can see here. And we also have the hieroglyphic depiction of the Set beast down at the bottom. They aren't quite sure, archaeologically speaking, if this was a real animal at one point, or if this was, kind of like a fantasy animal a cryptid of some kind. This card is called Imagination in this particular deck, but as I mentioned, I have the other version of this deck as well. And in that version of the deck, this card is actually called Delusion. And you see this drunken dancer. This sistrum over here shows that this person is performing possibly to a rhythmic beat, but their steps are kind of clumsy. You can see they're having to like watch their feet a lot, and there's possibly intoxication involved. That this person is not paying attention to the truth of matters, but rather being captivated by their own delusions. Or, as my spouse and I like to call it, caught up in a whimsy. We'll say things like, oh, so and so got caught up in a corporate espionage whimsy or an embezzlement whimsy. This card showing up in the reverse in the future position. So it's possible that you are going to experience something where you perceive one thing to be the case, and it actually ends up being quite different. And your disoriented state is then difficult to get oriented back in the right direction. Now, the potential for that is there. Remember that I was saying this is Neptunian energy, right? But it could also be that things will be greatly clarified in the future, such that if you do have any delusions surrounding you at this time, that as you move forward in this process, whatever it might be for you, Cancer, that those things will fall away. Anything that is not real, that is not true, anything that you might have a misconception about, especially, is going to be clarified, is going to be made abundantly clear, really. And those delusions will fall by the wayside. I am so sorry. I'm really, really sorry that I have allergies. It's not great. But I appreciate you guys sticking with me. It's not like being sick where you can just wait until you're well again. With allergies, I kind of just have to push through because I don't ever know when I'm going to feel better. So let's look now at the hopes and fears. This is a very good card to get there, actually. This is kind of like the arts and sciences card. And in this deck, it's called Thought. It's called Thoth. Well, it does have a lot to do with Thoth, right? The disciplines. This person is a sculptor. We have the depiction of the head from the side here. So looking at our different perceptions, our thoughts, our ideas. This also is a Saturnian card. So having to do with establishment, having to do with bringing things down into the material plane, grabbing hold of an idea up here and pulling it down into the material plane. That's definitely a part of this card as well. And especially if you're involved in the arts or the sciences, where you are actively involved in doing that on a regular basis. This can be about your manifestation too. There's a lot also to do with planning. So you might be at this time hoping that your big idea is going to pay off. And that is, I think, greatly possible looking at this card and looking at what we have in the future. especially because these delusions will be falling away. And that is really going to hone you in on what it is that you're actually doing. So the next card that we have here is going to be the result of what we saw down here in the MMCLI with the pilgrimage card. That there's a move, possibly, or a relocation, or a trip. It could also be travel, especially for a higher purpose, either a spiritual reason, traveling for your education, or traveling for some other kind of self-improvement. Remember, we did have a lot of mobility associated with this. And we were also seeing back here with the Wheel of Fortune, we do have one of those sphinxes, almost like the ones on your card, the Chariot card, coming out. There are some implications of choice and movement here in your reading in the current situation. So up in the midheaven, we have the Temperance card. And as you can see, this figure is pouring the liquid between the two vessels flawlessly and almost horizontally. So it takes a lot of skill and training to pour that way without losing a drop. It takes a lot of patience as well. We have down here the protective cobra, wadjet, coiled around. These might be papyrus, they might be lotus flowers. Both were very sacred, of course. This is this is Jupiter in your sign of Cancer now. So this is going to be possible wealth and expansion within your sign, Cancer. Can be also expansion of the reciprocity of emotional states between people, so that you are getting rid of any delusions, getting rid of any resentments that have been separating you from the people around you. And that takes patience. It takes practice. And there we have the Temperance card showing up in the midheaven position. So everything eventually in that area balancing out, possibly making new connections with people in a new place. And you're able to leave a lot of your baggage behind just by merit of the fact that you're leaving a lot of those old situations behind as well. And the final card for your reading this week, Cancer, is the Tower card. Now, this is called fragility in this deck. And we have here Mercury in one of its native signs, Virgo. This is a very logical energy. It has a lot to do with routines and the breaking of those routines. So in this particular case, I don't think that the Tower is a particularly bad card. I know it can be a little bit scary because it means that change is coming. But overall, it's quite a good thing to clear out the old to make room for the new. And so in that way, this is an excellent card for you to get in that final position, because it indicates that any old bad habits or any routines that are no longer working for you are going to fall by the wayside, and you will be forced into a new way of life. All right, Cancer. That is going to conclude your reading for this week. If you would like to join me over on the member side of the channel, after this video has concluded, I will be doing crystal scrying using this big chunk of obsidian. But your presence on the channel is appreciated in whatever form it takes. I do apologize. I need to blow my nose quickly. And I am very, very sorry. I don't think that having a runny nose is a good ASMR trigger. That's not why I'm doing this. But I do have very severe allergies, and I've already taken some allergy medicine. All right, so we will be moving on now to the sign of Scorpio. And Scorpio, if you would like, just relax and allow anything that you're curious about, you'd like to know more about, to float up to the forefront of your thoughts. And just wait there patiently while we get into the reading. And if you are feeling a little bit stressed out about any of these things, because I know sometimes the reason you want to figure something out is because it's a bit stressful, right? Just allow the divine white light of Source to come into your body very gently through the crown of your head, pull it down through the soles of your feet. You could do this using deep inhale breaths. Very gentle though. Just be very gentle with yourself. And then you can release that tension and that stress with a sigh out. Just allow anything that is causing you anxiety or stress to gently leave your body in that fashion, and it will return to Source, and it will be transmuted. Excuse me. Okay. Oh, I totally forgot the bibliomancy for Cancer. Let me write that down as another timestamp. So Cancer's bibliomancy is going to be at 39. Okay. All right, so before I get into Scorpio, oh, thank you, Eve. I really appreciate your support. Eve is our lovely moderator here on the channel and is greatly appreciated. Thank you. All right, Cancer. So, hence, a wise general makes a point of foraging on the enemy. 1 cartload of the enemy's provisions is equivalent to 20 of one's own, and likewise a single picule of his provender is equivalent to 20 from one's own store. Now, that's not to say that you should become the friend who consistently pays for everyone, or rather, you should not become the friend who consistently has everyone pay your cover charge wherever you go, but getting someone else to pay for you in certain situations is going to be worth more, I think, at the current time than you spending your own resources on things like that. Okay. So now we will start on Scorpio's reading. Okay. Scorpio, we're going to start here in the past. With this card about learning. This is about mentorship. So we have the teacher here. We have the student on the teacher's lap. We have the moon card here. This is lunar energy. So there's a cyclical aspect to learning that as we learn, we become stronger in those skills, and then we can turn around and teach those things to other people. And we have Anubis up here, who was the god of embalming. He was one of the gods of the afterlife and was part of the process of the weighing of the heart. So this could have to do with examination. Now, it's very interesting that we don't have Thoth depicted here on this card. A lot of the learning in ancient Egypt was done at what they called the House of Life, the temple. Writing, astronomy / astrology. And as this young person grows up, they may then decide to teach others those skills that they have learned. Now, you might have been in an education process recently, Scorpio. And this card showing up in the upright is letting us know that this is an ongoing educational process. So you might still be in classes. You might be, working toward a degree. You could be honing certain skills that you are learning on your own, even. It's likely that you have a mentor in this process. Maybe you recognize that, maybe you don't, or that you have people that you can turn to who are in a more advanced stage of the process than you are. So let's look now at the place of the significator, the current situation. And we have persuasion. So this is typically a Leo card, but in this deck, this is Sun in Aries. And in fact, we certainly are in Aries season. Down here at the bottom, we see Ra in the form of the falcon or hawk riding the accursed serpent, who I will not speak his name. But the idea being that there is a vanquishing occurring here that doesn't have to do with strength. It has to do with persuasion. It has to do with the sweetness of the tongue. And we have this figure here. She, of course, has this lemniscate on top of her head, the symbol of infinity. And she is holding the lion's mouth, presumably closing the mouth, it looks like, from her hand gestures. So during the current situation, Scorpio, your powers of persuasion, and this might have even come out last week, I would have to watch that video again to remember, your powers of persuasion might be the key to your success at this time and might be very strong. And here we have the 69th card. That's what she said. It's also a Venus card. And it has to do with fortune, Lady Luck. So we see here Nut stretched over like this, implying night. So this would be the time when the sun is moving through her body to be reborn the next day. We have this Scorpio underfoot, right? So that is a time that could be very dangerous to somebody. Being stung by a scorpion is not a joke. I never have been, fortunately, but there are a great deal of amulets against it and spells to reduce the poison of the scorpion. People did occasionally die of scorpion stings. So the key to your success is going to be taking that chance, going into the unknown. This card is called the Unknown in the other deck that I have. And trusting yourself that you will have the skills of persuasion required to get the best out of the opportunities that you are creating around yourself. So now we're going to look down at the imum-seli. And this, of course, is, I pretend there's a 12 houses wheel laid out on my Celtic cross spread. So what is down here in the imum-seli is going to represent the origins and foundations of what will happen in the goal or destiny, which is called the midheaven. And down in the imum-seli, we have this card about the dispenser. And this, as I mentioned in the Cancer reading, hierarchy is shown through size in a lot of Egyptian art. So this guy is the pharaoh. He's very important, and he is dispensing gifts to these very grateful people down here. We do have Khnum, who was a creator god. He was said to have thrown the entirety of the world on his potter's wheel. And we have that this correspondence is Uranus, which has to do with novel ideas. It also has to do with our social groups, right? And the dynamics within those social groups. So this card also could be seen a bit like the Six of Pentacles. And where it is here in the reverse, you might at this time be accepting charity. You might have taken out a loan. You might have more going out right now than you have coming in, which, sometimes that's just how it is. And that doesn't mean that you are not doing the right thing at this time. That just means that's the part of the cycle that you're in, and hopefully things will be turning around soon. So let's see about that. Here, from your perspective, we have this card about contrition. So this being part of a tribute being paid to the pharaoh. This is a Pluto card. So some aspects of transformation there as well. And we have this person who is a captive, probably of war. Possibly not, though. And this captive is being offered as part of this tribute. Now, we would never do anything like this today. But, of course, that was just part of the life of the pharaoh back then. And so the idea about this being not being in servitude to others, not being overly contrite toward others, not being too apologetic. Because sometimes people just have allergies, and that's how life is. But that you don't necessarily make friends when you apologize for things. Because especially like if there's not really a fault to be had, and this is a habit that I'm in very much. Growing up in the South, everybody's taught to be super, super polite to each other, for better or worse, right? But that you might be coming out of that and kind of, not being as apologetic, not feeling like you're being a burden to others, right? But rather feeling like more companionship with others. There are lots of alternatives to that kind of false apology that are much better. From an outsider's perspective, looking in Scorpio, we have regeneration. And this is a person raising a Jed column. This would be a pharaoh, again, judging by the way he's dressed. This would have been part of the Osiris mysteries. Another part of that is making corn mummies, and they would sprout the corn mummies. And all of these were rites of rejuvenation and to show that a lot of fertility comes from those cycles of life, that there is death, but then out of that death comes rebirth. So this is a card associated with Mars, actually. And this would be like active, fertile forces of Mars. The Jed column being the spine of Osiris, but also, being shaped a certain kind of way. I think you know what I'm saying. And we do see that single strand of wheat down at the bottom, and it is green, showing that fertility. So from the outside looking in, people might not see your new growth. They might not see working with you as a path to growth and success at this time. And that's really going to be, part of this persuasion. How are you going to persuade them? And it's not like, like I said, you don't have to be contrite. You don't have to say, I'm sorry. You don't have to come from a place of lack, even if you need more out of other people than they need from you. Let's look a little more because, too, remember you're in this learning process. So, there are certain perks to mentorship, just like there are perks to that learning process. Oh, yuck. Sorry. No, don't apologize. So here in the future, Scorpio, we have the Magnificence card, and it's showing up in the reverse. So that shows that we have the potential for this in the future, but it's going to depend on how you're able to tap into all of your resources and taking a chance. So I do see some very clear and specific upright cards for you in the present position, but then we also see kind of these cards about navigating social groups, and especially social groups where there are hierarchy components, right? Or perceived hierarchy components. So this person has something that I need in order to move forward, but not coming to them in an apologetic way or from a place of lack. And that is going to be the key to this magnificence. See, these two people are peers. The one person is up on their knees, but they're the same size. They're dressed almost identically, and they're enjoying delicious brunch together, right? Having a delicious midday meal. The boat here at the top of this card, also that the two ends of the boat are kind of identical. So no one is going forward or backward. Now, there is a little bit of implied stagnancy, perhaps, to that. But no, in fact, we see that we have Mercury over here. And we see this ring, this cycle being reinforced. And then we also have, this is a hieroglyph that talks about particular parts of the decanal cycle. And I'll go into that more in a different video, but just know that this is not what we call the Big Dipper or the Little Dipper. A lot of sources will try to tell you that, but actually I read a book that was much more, because if you look at it, it's not oriented the correct direction. It actually is something that indicates they called some of them like the unwearying stars, but basically they're talking about the decanal cycles, which would be very similar to the astrological signs and the constellations associated with that. So we do see this movement and this continuous movement. So this could be a continuous building of one's fame and success, but it's going to take tapping into that, Scorpio. Mercury is also about communication. So you can think about this as like landing a really high-powered, oh, thank you, Eve, I just saw your comment. Landing a really high-powered lunch meeting. Here in the hopes and fears, we have counseling. So again, we're looking at situations with mentorship involved. Now, these two figures are of a similar hierarchical standing. They would be the same height, except that this person has subjugated themselves to this other person here. And this person is dressed sort of like a physician and probably would be, and then we do have the jackal down here. So because Anubis had great familiarity with the human body through embalming, probably some things associated with medicine as well. And this person, again, is asking for this person's help. So I think that right now what you're really hoping for is for a mentor to come into your life. Someone who is going to be able to help you cultivate your gifts and get the things that you want going. Now, let's look at the midheaven. So this is going to be the goal or destiny. And this is going to be based on where we were coming from down here with the dispenser reversed. That maybe you are accepting charity at this time, or that you are spending more than you have coming in. And we have kind of a 5 of Wands sort of a card here. So it's very interesting that on this card, we've got these two people here enjoying lunch together, right? And they're building each other up. Here, we have these two figures, and they could be playing a game called Senate. This is a Jupiterian card. Okay, so we are going to see expansion, possibly expansion of wealth through this. These two people are also building each other up. But whereas on the card of magnificence, and this is a very gender neutral card with Mercury energy here, they're doing it through collaboration. Rivalry is a different kind of collaboration. It's very competitive. You are becoming better because your opponent is becoming better. And my spouse was talking to me about sumo. In the car yesterday, as we were headed to our favorite video store to watch a movie. And he was talking about how at different periods in the history of sumo, sometimes the competitors there was like a lot of really good competition. And then other times, maybe somebody would stay at the top because nobody could really compete with them. And they just weren't surrounded with the people who were going to help them develop that way. So, what I see for you in your destiny, Scorpio, is not so much that it's going to be collaborative as that the mentorship that you receive is going to be training against your best competitors. Not that everything has to be a contest, of course, but in this case, I think it could be. And then your final outcome card. We have the Plower. And so this would have been, there's a couple of cards. There's the Plower and there's the Weaver. So the Plower would have been more like masculine agricultural roles. And then the Weaver would have been more like what we consider traditionally feminine work. Oh, that's fine. Yeah, I'm going pretty long today. I haven't even gotten to Pisces yet, so I totally understand. Don't worry about it. But here we have this card showing up in the reverse. Now, this is Mercury energy, so there is a lot of movement to this card. But it would be what we consider perhaps more like career, more like a 9 to 5, more like what we consider like good, honest work, like get your hands dirty kind of a vibe. And this card showing up in the reverse, especially where in the future, because these are both kind of future placement cards, right? We have Magnificence, and then on the other hand, we have the Plower. So we don't have many cards about choice in your reading this week, Scorpio, but we do have this Chance card, right? And the Chance card is saying nothing ventured, nothing gained, right? You have the potential for this with Magnificence. You also have the potential for a good, honest day job, if that's what you want. You have a lot of options open to you, but the key is going to be to stop being so apologetic and to really open yourself up to understanding that you're on an equal footing with the people around you. There's nothing, the only reason that you are separated from this person is that you have reduced your own stature in the situation. And you might be coming from a place of lack. You might be feeling like, well, I'm on government assistance, or I don't have very much money right now, or I don't have very much to offer. But you do. There are things, there are skills that you have to offer, and those will be coming out more and more as you come into your place of magnificence. So, Scorpio, I promise not to forget to do your bibliomancy. The skillful soldier does not raise a second levy, neither are his supply wagons loaded more than twice. So this is very important when we're talking about coming from a place of lack, coming from a place of scarcity, right? Because what this is saying is that if you're very skilled at this persuasion, you are not going to need to have those resources. The resource that you have is something beyond that. Would be your skill as a soldier, would be your skill in your trade, right? And being able to convince people of that is going to be the key to your success overall. And especially what we were talking about with the Cancer bibliomancy, where it was like, well, one cart full of your own stores, or one cart full of your opponent's stores, is worth 20 cartfuls of your own, right? Because it might take that 20 to get that one. So that is going to be, if that makes sense, I hope that translated properly. That is going to conclude the Scorpio reading for today. And I will be heading after the Pisces reading over to the member side of the channel and doing some crystal scrying with this beautiful chunk of black obsidian. So if you're interested in that, you're cordially invited, but your presence is appreciated here on the channel in whatever form it takes. And I'm going to do something very quickly, which is to change my batteries, because we're about to start the Pisces reading. So I shouldn't end up being disconnected, but I do need to change the battery in my camera. So give me one moment. Okay, great, it worked. Okay. All right, well, I'll figure that out in a moment. So now we're going to move on to Pisces. And Pisces, if you would, just allow any thoughts or concerns that you have that you'd like to address in the reading to float up to the forefront of your thoughts and wait there patiently while I shuffle the cards. And of course, if there are things about this which are stressful to you, please just gently breathe through them. And as you inhale, you're going to be drawing in the divine white light of Source. And it's going to fill your body from head to toe, from the crown of your head down through the soles of your feet into the ground below. And then as you exhale, you can just sigh out. Oh, geez. Let's see. Testing 1, 2. Can you hear me okay? I might have jiggled the my mixer a little bit, but there shouldn't be, the audio shouldn't have disconnected. It should have just been the video. But you guys can't hear me at all? Because I see like the little green lights showing up. Oh, okay, let's see. See about this. Test 1, 2, testing 1, 2. Test 1, 2, testing 1, 2. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, great. Sorry about that. I didn't write down the Pisces timestamp yet, so. In replay, you'll be able to skip past all of that. And I'm not going to apologize again because I've already apologized several times. This is just how it's going to be today. And I am going a bit long with the readings, so. All right. So, Pisces. Let's see what we have for you today. We have for you in the past. The perplexity card. So this can have to do with dualities. We have this is a hieroglyph for like an N sound. This is a Jupiterian card. We have the lily in one hand and a serpent in the other hand. So there could be a situation in the past for you, Pisces, in which there was duality to a situation that you might have had the lily in one hand, the serpent in the other, and not really been able to focus on either one. You want to know what the serpent's doing. You don't want to get bitten. You don't want the lily, which is a very fragile kind of a flower, to fade before you get a chance to enjoy its beautiful fragrance. So there is an implied binary with that card, but also that there's a range in between of acceptable behavior, right? Oh, let's see, I think maybe I started at... Okay. So now let's move on to the current situation, the place of the significator. And here we have the arts and sciences card. So this is somebody who is writing. They're either learning to be a scribe or they're a very learned scribe and are very well versed in hieroglyphics, able to write them with ease. We have this figure of the deity here. They have the Ankh, and they're wearing the crown of Lower Egypt. So maybe that would be Memphis. It could be... Well, we do have the baboon of Thoth down here, so we are seeing Thoth show up in the reading. We have the sun here. Of course, the sun was very important to the Egyptians as a life-giving force and also as a destroyer. I'm not entirely sure who that god could be. Let me see if it's in the book, because it's going to bug the crap out of me if I don't check. Okay, so that is card number 37. All right. It doesn't say. It doesn't say who that is, so I apologize. Oh, I said I wasn't going to say sorry anymore. But there might be something that you're leaving behind in the current situation, Pisces, in regard to art and science. So perhaps you haven't written anything for a long time. Maybe you're leaving the field of STEM. Maybe you are giving up on a certain art project. Now, of course, I want for people to carry through with their hopes and dreams. So, whatever is the right path for you, I trust you, though. Now, it's very interesting that we have these two things coming out where there was a lot of, perplexity in a certain situation. And so maybe this, with what art and science represents, maybe that was tied up in perplexity, right? That there were too many complications to get to the bottom of this. That could be like writing grants. It could be, trying to get a sponsor for an art project. Any number of things. It's going to be different for all of you because this is a general reading. But the crossing card for this is very clear. We have the purification card. And here again, we have this idea of duality, that we have those two pictures, one of which is white, one of which is red. So that could even be purified water and blood pouring over this person's head as a purification process. This might be a Nile carp down here at the bottom, which was the sacred fish to Osiris. And then we have up here at the top, that would be the sun god Re, or it might be Horus the Elder. This is a Mars card, so we have a lot of fiery energy here in the current situation, that there is action being taken with the sun here and Mars here. So this is a card of action. And it might be that what needs to happen for you at the current time, Pisces, is for everything to be simplified, everything to kind of be calmed down. Let's look here at the Imam Sili. So again, that is going to be, I like to pretend I have a 12 houses wheel on top of my Celtic cross. And down at the bottom is the Imam Sili. That's going to be the origins and foundations for everything that happens up here in the midheaven, which is the goal or destiny. And this is very much like the world card. We have this harp player. We have the 4 cardinal directions depicted by these 4 lotus blossoms. We have the 4 sons of Horus here on the card as well. This is a card associated with Venus. So money and love making the world go round. She's playing this beautiful song on this harp, which strings together the fabric of space-time. And we do have the protection of Wadjet encircling that sphere, which could be taken to mean the world itself. It could be taken to mean eternity. But this is a card of completion. So we're talking about the return. Everything coming full circle back around to start back at the beginning with the Fool card back at the start of the Fool's journey through the major arcana. So this is going to mark the completion of a cycle for you. This could be the completion of a project and then you get paid, and that would be Venus energy, certainly. It could be a progression through We think about in the Kabbalah, there's like the 4 different worlds. It could be something like that. There's the 4 cardinal directions. And of course, going back to our 12 houses wheel, right? We have the ascendant, we have the descendant, we have the imam sili here, and we have the midheaven up here. The 4 quarters, the 4 seasons of the year. So all of these things kind of being broken up into quarterly increments, but marking a cycle of some kind in your life and that coming to completion. And that 4, in terms of completion, might have special significance to you, Pisces, in that situation. From your perspective, we have a very good card. It is called Hope in this deck, but you might recognize it as the Star card. Oh, Kayla's lovely. This is called the Eternal Tarot. Here, let me show you. And I bought it on Amazon some time ago, but I think they should still be available. So, of course, we have the Star card pouring out energies. Again, we're seeing these 2 different streams, like on the purification card. So this purification process is very much for you a process of hope, of your dreams being fulfilled. And here in this deck, this is Saturn in Libra energy. So bringing into the concrete these ideas of equanimity and equality and balance. And so that's what the Star card is doing here, balancing, perhaps being the one to pour out these pictures in that purification process. So there could be aspects of a peer group that are tied up in this. It could be that all of your friends are involved in a completely different discipline, Pisces, and that you are being pulled to a different discipline at this time because that's where your support group is. And that being a purification of one's social circles. Maybe the situation that you were in, where this was concerned, might have been a bit toxic. And so that would be a purification of those circles as well. And that would also be created with some of the things that we see with the Star card. But overall, very good for success. Over here, from the outside person's perspective, we have what looks to be the process of going through the opening of the mouth ceremony. So we have the ba of presumably this person here. This person would be the Osiris, the deceased. And the ba up here, you can see in their hands they have this little symbol, which looks actually a lot like the rod and ring in the hands of Inanna, right? I have her statue right here. Sorry for the armpit noises. No, I'm not sorry. You're welcome. Right? It looks a lot like those. And I think the meaning is probably very similar. That it is definitely in Egyptian iconography a symbol of eternity and the everlasting life of the Osiris, as the deceased was called, into perpetuity in the afterlife. And we have this priest here who would be performing that opening of the mouth ceremony. And we can tell that this process has begun because this person's arms are moving again. So it wasn't just about opening the mouth, it was also about bringing reanimation into the limbs of the Osiris. And this process of the opening of the mouth was also used with statuary that were used in the temples to animate the statues. So that's what we're seeing here, is this process by which this evolution is occurring. We have Venus here, the life-giving and fertile aspects of Venus. That could also be Venus as the North Star, right? The North Star and Venus are very linked as well. But that this person, this could be you, Pisces, and people see that you are starting to loosen up. You're starting to maneuver in a way that you haven't before. They're starting to perceive this change in you. So here in the future, Pisces, we have a card that's a bit like the Five of Wands, and that is this uneasiness. It can also be called ascension. This is the heart. This is Ib. This is the word for heart, and it is upside down. This is a Mercury corresponding card. So Mercury being about communication, about one's siblings, about travel, short distance travel too. And here we see these three figures are standing, and then the fourth figure is kneeling on the ground. So again, like in the Scorpio reading where I was saying that one of the people had subjugated themselves. So we see that again on this card, that there's a lot to do with size and hierarchy in Egyptian art, and that sometimes people are subjugating themselves. They are the same size as these other figures, but they have lowered themselves. So the warning, Pisces, would be not to do that. Not to lessen your own personhood in order to try to maintain civility. And of course, depending on your Pisces placement, that might be how you tend to deal with those kinds of situations. But it doesn't have to be. Now, I do see that there is going to be a period in the future for you where there might be some turmoil. But it's going to be very important in these situations to remain true to your heart. Because remember, if you get there on the big day and your heart doesn't weigh the same as the feather, then you get eaten. And I don't make the rules. But it's things like this where these make your heart heavy. So be able to release those things and release them in a healthy and productive way. Because, these people are not necessarily coming to blows, but they're very close. Everybody's got their hands up. This is a very defensive arm position. So there might be things about how this is progressing that do lead to some turmoil, especially depending on who is tied up in this situation. All right, so now let's talk about your hopes and fears. And this card is the Judgment card in this deck. Here we're calling it Resurrection because whereas, in ancient Egypt, they didn't really have like a rapture. That's more of like a modern type. Well, I guess it was in the Bible, but I think the way we think about the rapture today is a little bit different than the way it was thought about in ancient times. But that everyone has this reckoning, this time of resurrection. And again, this is kind of what we're seeing here with this evolution card. So we can see that from the outside looking in, people can see that this is occurring. But you, Pisces, might be afraid that it isn't coming. Now, this is a Mars energy card in Capricorn. So this is going to be action regarding possibly practical matters or career. And Mars and Venus, of course, get along beautifully with one another. So where we see this card reversed, you might be afraid that there's not going to be action taken in your career, but I don't see that as the case in your reading, Pisces, because this card directly contradicts that. Additionally, 60 is divisible by 20 by a factor of 3. So whatever you are expecting, it might be 3 times better than that. Or your salary might be 3 times more than at a previous place, etc. You might get 3 times as much time off or something. So now we're going to look at the midheaven situation up here. This is going to be the goal or destiny, and it is going to be based on the closure and completion that we saw here with the return in the current situation. Now, this card is a little daunting, but I wouldn't be too afraid of it. Okay, we have uncertainty. And here we have 2 figures. We know that they are in the duat, and we know that because this star hieroglyph means duat, and it's over their head. We have the Wadjet eye guiding over here. Well, okay, it's not green, so it's not Wadjet. Let's see. Is that the right eye or the left eye? I think that is the right eye of Ra. So this figure has the right eye of Ra. That would be like the sun guiding him. But this other figure over here has this was scepter. So you could see it like this figure has the vision, this figure has the power. And we have this very traditionally feminine symbol beneath their feet, which is the Tiet knot. This represented a type of bandage girdle that would be worn during menstruation and was a symbol of the goddess Aset, great of magic. This is a Pluto card, so there is the potential for transformation here. So these 2 figures are kind of going in opposite directions. We know that they have great power within each one of them, probably enough power to go it alone. And this might be a particular instance in which it is time for them to separate and go their own ways. So that's an interesting thing to think about, especially in the context of one's own journey. And especially where we had this card in the past, right? These 2 cards are similar, but they're also very different. And remember, this card did come out in the reverse. So Jupiter is expansiveness. We've got perpetual expansion between that lily and that serpent, kind of pulling this person in twain. And that could be seen as then this fracturing of the spirit that results in these 2 people going in 2 very different directions. And one could even recognize that, as this is occurring in the underworld, as the fragmenting of the spirit that occurs to recombine into new and different personalities so that new personality can be expressed here on the physical plane. if that makes sense. So the potential for this is there in the midheaven. But because we have a very stable ending, it's going to be up to you as to how fractured you want this to get, Pisces. And it's definitely going to depend on you being able to communicate your truth peacefully and effectively, and not trying to lower yourself in order to try to maintain peace in situations, because that, I think, is really going to lead to this more than anything else. And that might have been the root of this in the past as well. And now your final outcome, Pisces, and then we'll do the bibliomancy, and then I will go over and do the extended crystal scrying. So your final outcome in this reading is premeditation, and it's showing up in the reverse. Premeditation is a little different from precognition, but we do see that this person has a lotus in their hand, and this could be like the blue lotus or the dream lotus, which can contribute greatly to heightened states of psychic awareness. We do have Neptune on this card as one of the correspondences, and we have Aker. Aker is the two-headed lion, seeing in both directions into eternity, both past and future. So a very powerful entity and a very powerful energy to be able to tap into using that dream lotus. It is contemplating the route to one's success. It is not going into situations like this unaware and undefended. But these two cards are showing up in the reverse. So you could make this very certain if you want. But the potential for this premeditation is there, and it's going to be up to you to tap into it. To me, both of these cards showing up reversed, there's not exactly like a dichotomy between the two, but it's kind of like two possible alternatives that you can either put a lot of advanced planning and a lot of self-development into the current situation that you can see past and future, or ending up kind of split in two, winding up in the same schism state as before. Because remember, we did have, this very strong card in the Imam Sili about cycles and the possibility that if this cycle reaches an end and you don't learn all your lessons this time, and this is a Venus in Pisces card, so very relevant to your interests as a Pisces, can be love, can be finance, remember, with Venus, can be fertility with Venus. The fertility of that Piscean emotional energy, right? Beautiful water. These are going to be the two alternatives that are predominant in this situation. All right, I think I have said just about enough for that tarot reading. Let's do the bibliomancy. No, this one here? Okay. Tung Chiang said, "Our adversary is of a choleric temper and easily provoked. Let us make constant sallies and break down his walls. Then he will grow angry and come out. Once we can bring his force to battle, it is doomed to be our prey. This plan was acted upon, Yao Sang came out to fight, was lured as far as San Yuan by the enemy's pretended flight, and finally attacked and slain. So this is what you're being invited to act upon here, Pisces. That may be stirring the pot a little bit in a strategic way is not always a bad thing. It really depends on what your planned outcome is, right? And it's not just about what's best for you in this situation. It's what's going to be best for the entire environment. And I do think that it's okay to be a little manipulative in situations like that. All right, Pisces. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to thank all of you who came out for the readings and stuck around to watch the whole thing. Thank you to my lovely moderator, Eve. I want to thank all of you who comment in the chat, who come and watch the videos week after week, who watch even when I'm dripping fluids out of my facial orifices. I'm going to be going now over to the member side of the channel to do the crystal scrying. Thank you, Eve. I really appreciate your words of support. It means a lot. If you would like to join me over there, join us over there, really, you are cordially invited, but your presence is appreciated here on the channel in whatever form it takes. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I look forward to seeing all of you again very,